Limitless live, not from Sarasota, Florida today, from Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas. Very confusing because I thought we were in Kansas City, Kansas, but we were informed that we're in Kansas City, Missouri. Didn't know there was a difference. Now I do. Very awesome. And I say we because we have a special guest today, Iris Zimmerman, who's also here. We were presenting today to a pharmaceutical company working on leading their leaders. And so Iris is going to come on in. Come on in, Iris. Let's go. What's up?
Hi. We are literally like across the hall.
Yeah, we're right there from each other. But it's a virtual world, so we got to do. We contemplated doing this together, sitting side by side, but we figured that'd be a little bit too awkward. So
I have a big head, so I'm not sure we'd be able to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Especially after how well we presented today, you should have a big head. See how that works?
Very good. Dad jokes.
Dad jokes all the time. Okay, so today, Nat, aren't you supposed to be having a baby? Why is Nat on here? Go have your baby, Nat. What are you doing? What's going on? Why is Nat watching it live? And she's like
she's getting mentally prepared for having the baby.
I don't even know. Nat, I'm surprised you haven't had the baby yet. Go have the baby. Okay, so today we are talking. It's interesting because, you know, in our current iteration of Limitless Minds, one of the key aspects that we recognize that is a performance enhancer is the function of awareness, right? And being able to have awareness of your surroundings, have awareness of goals, have awareness of your team, have social awareness, have individual awareness. All these things matter. And I kept thinking about, I kept thinking of it. That's awesome. Nat's going to have the baby tonight. That's awesome, Nat. Well, we wish you the best of luck, and I cannot wait to meet Josh Jr. I'm super excited that I'm glad you're naming him after me. It's really wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. The whole thing is this: like, awareness can really be. I think this is kind of my thought. I think it could be a focus enhancer. I think it could be actually help your concentration and focus, which is kind of like a little bit maybe counterintuitive, because a lot of times if you're like you're hyper, like, you know, concentration is wide, it's narrow, it's wide, it's narrow. And sometimes if you're too aware, then you're not focused on what's right in front of you. So, but I kept thinking about it from this perspective, and I'm very interested in your thoughts on this, Iris, is that, okay, here I am, and if I'm what I remember, and this is like from IMG Academy days, we used to have these chairs in the basketball gym, and it said, "Stay focused" on the bottom of the chairs.
It's very aggressive.
It was
Very aggressive,
Josh. It was in bold letters. It was in bold letters.
Screaming it.
Exactly. But I always thought it was wrong, and I'm curious about your thought on that. Like, I think it's almost like, especially as athletes, especially as performers, I think it's almost impossible to stay focused for the entire 48 minutes of a game, or the entire every round of a match, or whatever. But I'm curious about your thought. Like, when you hear the thing "stay focused," what does that kind of mean to you as an athlete?
Yeah, I would love to define what stay focused really means, because you're right. Like, you go in and out of focus all the time. And I almost think when it's screaming like that, it almost gives you no room for error. So you feel bad. So like, you're almost hyper focusing because you're like, I got to stay focused. And oh my God, I'm not focused. And so there's a ton we talked about this today too. There's just a ton of judgment, right? So I'm always wary about these like things in bold letters with exclamation points, because we as humans we can't stay focused. We're not robots. So we do need tools and things to help us kind of stay in the lane. We're always going to kind of wander out of the lane. And so how do we kind of stay with our intentions and be where our feet are?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, because you just talk about staying in your lane, but your lane can be kind of wide and you can bounce around in that lane. So the thing that really jumped out at me, there was a couple things. Number one was, I saw recently a Instagram interview with Novak Djokovic, who just won his 24th.
He's kind of good at tennis, just kind of.
He's kind of good at tennis. And it was funny because, you know, I think you could have the argument that he's probably, you know, it's like Serena Williams, him, Nadal, and Federer, right? Like, those are the four, right?
Coco Gauff. Coco Gauff.
She's got won majors.
Doesn't matter. She's just amazing.
but she's not there yet. She's got 20
Okay.
more to go. Martina Navratilova could be in there, right? So those are, but he talked about the difference between the tennis players on the tour that were really good and sometimes great versus that company of the elite, Serena, Rafa, Federer himself. So the biggest difference that he's noticed is that everybody gets distracted. Everybody loses focus. Everybody thinks about the score and what the next 2 points means. Everybody thinks about how tired they are. Everybody thinks about, how bad their serve is that day, all that stuff. He said, but the elites, they catch it really, 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 really fast. They don't make themselves wrong for it, and they adjust quickly. And so I thought that was like really akin to what we're talking about here, about being aware. When you're aware of the fact that you're distracted, or you're aware of the fact that you're maybe not thinking about what's important now, or you're over here, then you can draw yourself back in.
Yeah, I think the whole piece of that again is you're watching those words, right? You're not going emotionally being attached to those words and then going down the pathway. We talked about lanes, because if you get distracted and then you get upset about it, you're going to go down that pathway and lanes. You're just trying to readjust to getting back. And you're absolutely right. I'm thinking about my own fencing is you have a choice to go down all these paths. Your brain is thinking miles a minute, especially when you're under pressure. And so you have to be able to realign all the time. You have to be able to come back all the time.
Yes. And I just got distracted because I forgot to put my do not disturb on my computer. I just went, and I got distracted. So now I just put the do not disturb.
Yeah. So there it is. So when I work with,
Right?
when I work, yes, such a good, see, I think you did it because you wanted to give an example, but I think about it a lot with my clients, because we are living in a world where sometimes even our nervous systems can't handle all the limitless distractions that we have. Everything's dinging. Your watch is dinging. Your phone is dinging. Everything's dinging. So, you have to plan. You've got to know, I think you have to know your triggers for distraction, right?
Yeah.
So like what triggers distraction? Slack, right? A dinging on my phone, something on my wristwatch. So you really have to know those triggers, and you have to know yourself. You have to know when you're going to get distracted. It's really
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah. I mean, you and I were talking about it this morning as we were walking around the unpopulated downtown of Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Yeah, we saw like 2 people. It was great. What's really amazing is, like, you and I were talking about, just kind of like also knowing your internal systems. Like, when are you more likely to get distracted? So, for example, I know my mornings, I can be really hyper focused. I don't know why my biorhythms are like that, but in the morning, I'm like, wow, I'm really good. By the time I get to probably about 3:00 in the afternoon, my internal systems get kind of like a little bit wonky. And like, if there's too much coming at me at the same time, I'm just like, oh, I just get a little bit over the top, like I just get pulled this way and that way, and it becomes overwhelming to me, and I kind of emotionally shut down. Is there kind of like a time for you? By the way, Caitlin Good just tapped in. Caitlin, congratulations as well. I know you're a new mom here too, and so that's for number two for you.
2 or 3. I can't remember. I talked to Caitlin when she was pregnant. Was it 2 or 3? Caitlin, you got to let us know. 2 or 3.
So have either of you used a reset word to get back on that? We'll talk about that in a second. But is there a time frame, or do you know like a certain period for yourself, Iris, that like, oh, okay, I better.
Yeah, I think I was Spanish at some point, because at like 2:00 I need a siesta, because I wake up so because I want to live in Europe just for the siesta portion.
Yes.
Like 2 to 4, doors are closed. No one's talking to Iris from 2 to 4. And I have been known at 10:00 at night to tell my kids I'm done being a parent. You guys got to parent yourselves. So I know my time frames. But, it is actually, all kidding aside, with clients, I'll often ask them, it's not, they want to do time management. I want to be super productive. I want to optimize productivity. And we often don't think about optimizing ourselves. And we have to, if we know ourselves, we can better optimize the times that we're going. of course, you can't always be in control of every meeting. We try to think about, like, are there periods and windows where you need more deep work? Where I work with a lot of researchers, they have to do a lot of work. So they reserve that, like you, in the morning time. So a lot of my clients are morning workers where they can do a lot of deep thinking and a lot of complex thinking. So it's not a time to distract yourself with emails, because we can all go down that email rabbit hole, or turning off, like Slack, turning off messaging and turning off those things so that you can be in the deep work phase. So I know Cal Newport, that's someone that talks about deep work a lot too. We're not always in control, but just know yourself. But also knowing yourself is really important, because if at 2:00 Iris has a meeting with Josh, she's going to know it's going to be B game. So, and she's going to try her best to limit as many distractions as possible, so that knowing that I'm going to be a little bit more tired going into the meeting.
I also think, what's also interesting about that too is environment, right? And so we do this thing at Limitless Minds where we'll have an audience do what we call the concentration grid. And it's a grid of numbers from 0 to 99. And we'll be on the app sooner or later. But 0 to 99.
Sooner. Yep.
Sooner, yes. And we'll call out a number. So I might call out 23. And I'll say, on your market, set, go. And you got to find the number 23, and then you got to go up in order 23, 24, 25. And they're all randomized. And we do it 3 times. And every time we change the environment. So the first time, you and I are just both doing it, and we're not distracted by anything around us. We're just doing the thing. The second time, you're just staring at me doing it, like just kind of watching me intently, like silently watching me intently. It's like really awkward. Hannah would love it. It's super awkward. And then the third one is we're actively distracting, like yelling and screaming and da 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 da. And it's really interesting because different environments, people perform very differently in each environment. So some people might do well in the library scenario where there's nobody talking, they're left to their own devices. Some people do it where there's other people around, but they're not interacting with them, and it's like kind of calmer. And then some people like need to be at Starbucks where it's like loud and there's good steamers going off, and then they do really well in that. So a little bit too is knowing your environment. Like without a doubt, if I got to do deep work, I'm going to a cafe. I know it sounds really, again, counterintuitive, but I just need that other energy around me of people doing stuff and having conversations. I put music on and I put my head down, and it just like super focuses me. So those are I call it the creative cafe. I go to the cafe to be creative. Is there an environment for you that works best? Which one are you?
I think when I'm doing deep work, I just have to I will go down rabbit holes, right? So like I need to make sure those things are turned off. You're absolutely right. I think we have to set ourselves up for success, and we don't always think about that. We don't always think about like what is around us that could help set us up to do the work. How do we want to work? What's the best way for us to work? But I think, I like the cafe scenario. So cafes work for me because the energy around me help with things like dull things. So if I have to do emails or invoicing or something that I just don't like, it takes a lot of personal energy for me, I will go somewhere or go to a cafe because I need that energy, which is funny because for you, it actually helps you to narrow your focus. For me, it just helps bring up my energy levels, because otherwise I'd be at home trying to distract myself and not do the things that discipline myself to do the things that are boring, right? So.
Yeah, the mundane stuff, exactly. So that's kind of interesting. So one of the things that we talk about, right, is like how awareness can help and impact focus in a positive way. Well, number one is like knowing when you're distracted, right? And so we've kind of skipped around a little bit, but like knowing when you're distracted. So here's my question. So back to the sport analogy. Sometimes the physical outcomes of stuff can inform internally what's going on. So the external can inform the internal. I'll give you an example. So one of the pitchers I worked with years ago, he was not really good at noticing when he was tense or really being introspective, but he knew that if he was tense, he would grip the ball a little tighter than normal. As a result, the external outcome of him throwing that pitch would be the ball would sail down and away. It would go, it would kind of zip that way. And so if he saw that, if he knew the thing was doing that, then he would just step off the mound. He would take a couple deep breaths to settle himself. and then the next pitch you would be a little bit more fluid. So is there something like, for you, that's an example of an external informing the internal. For me, like external, it's like, again, the binging, the distractions, da 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 da. I'll be like, oh wow, I've been playing around with this. I've been on CNN.com for too long. Like there's like an internal clock that goes off. What is there something for you like externally that hey, I'm getting distracted, or maybe some of your coaching clients or something of that nature?
Well, I'll start with me because I am a very somatic person. Like for me, it's not just all in my head, but it's also in the physical body. But if I feel, and I have a watch, a Garmin watch, my heart rate might be elevated if I'm doing too many things. And by the way, multitasking is a myth for sure. So if I feel like I'm doing too many things, like having too many tabs open, doing too many things going down the route, I'm often probably at a higher elevated heart rate, or my nervous system is kind of like, I feel kind of jittery, right? Like almost like I've had a cup of coffee. So I think you're right that we can use these external cues, but it also, I would say that I know myself that if I'm in that realm, then I'm really too far down. So you really want to start to try to shift the behavior a little sooner. But you're right. If you're not aware, one of the things you can do is just to see some of these external cues, or how long have you been on? And your phone is great. You can go on your phone and look at how much screen time. I definitely think that I've done that too. If I have a super stressful week, I'll often I'll often kind of look at the Instagram probably to like help me kind of reset or refocus, but I'm on it too long. So I would say, and it feels like I'm giving all the truths out here, but you can look at your phone, right? So if you've had a really stressful week, if you're looking at your screen, maybe you're looking at your screen too much, offering too much distraction because you are highly stressed. So there's a ton of data everywhere. You can use these different devices to help and support you.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of times it's really interesting, right? The devices can be divisive in the sense that they pull you. Language here.
Oh my God, hashtag dag jokes everywhere. So go ahead.
Jokes. They can pull you away, right? We talk about the bings and the bops and the businesses and all that stuff, and you're just like you're getting. But you can also, that's the whole thing, is we always talk about, again, at Limitless Minds. You have your phone, but is your phone using you, or are you using the phone? It is a tool. It is not the director of your life. You are the director of your life. But so often we get pulled into it as it's, okay, I got to answer this email. I got to answer this text. I need to da-da-da-da-da. We've also seen the research and the studies about how addictive these phones are set up to be, and the dopamines that are fired off and the endorphins that are fired off from receiving texts, from receiving emails, from getting likes on your Instagram, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we know that, but that's where the discipline comes in and the focus comes in. It's like, okay, what's important, and getting into that and focusing on that. So yeah, that's, you make a great point in terms of how often do you check your screen time? I get it every Sunday. I get the little message. I usually, because I'm so used to just getting rid of notifications and swiping, I usually kind of forget to look at it, but the screen time thing is in there. You can just go in and look and see how long you've been on it, what your average is. And then, if your average is whatever, if your average is an hour a day on screens, first of all, you're probably a monk. But secondly, then you can, okay, what am I doing next? How am I going to shave that down next week? Maybe I'll just make it 55 minutes. Maybe my goal is 55 minutes this week, right? And you don't have to do big, but you can do small little increments, and over time, you'll just get better at it. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I would just say that a lot of what we have a ton of technology, and a lot of times we're doing evaluations as a coach of how much this technology is sort of taking over, how much of it is controlling you. So a lot of this is, we have nervous systems and operating systems of human beings, right? They're kind of like old operating systems of the cavemen, right? We're not used to having a ton of these distractions. We're not used to having all of these things going off. So with my clients, I have them, and I'm just going to go back, is if you want to check your phone or go on Instagram, that's okay. and there's no judgment in that. We're just going to do it from this time to this time to help you reset and recharge, because it does help some people just to kind of step back from work, look at something funny or fun. I had someone who looked at SNL videos between, and she was a psych ED doc. So she needed some levity, right? So we actually planned. We said, okay, your clinic's over at this time. You get 15 minutes to watch these videos, and then we're back to it, to your clinical work. So you can actually make technology work for you, but when you allow technology to run for you, when it's like, oh, I'll just put Slack on, click, 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 and then another ding, another LinkedIn ding, or something else, then you're allowing that to distract you. And you can turn off a lot of these notifications. And so being very clear about your, and being aware again about your energy and your time, then you can put in those times where you can focus on unfocusing, or you can focus on all the dings on Slack. You have control over that.
Yeah. The focus on unfocusing. I like that. Well, we in the sports world, we call it the shot clock, right? You have a shot clock. So you're allowed to like be distracted. You have that shot clock, just put those boundaries on it, put the bumpers on it. So then you're not just going down this whole unproductive road, right? Where you look at it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've been on for an hour, right?
Yeah. I'd love to, I'll just throw this question out there and you guys can all answer if you want, but we have a lot of high performers here. I'd love for them to also talk about how they maintain focus. Do they think about their time? Do they schedule in? Do they know themselves as far as like their energy management? How do you help yourself and support yourself to focus throughout the day? So all of the people that are on the right side, like Caitlin was a high level athlete. And a performer, figure skater. So she knows DJ's a high performer, right? So I don't know Nat as well as you do, but I'm assuming people who are here are high performers. So put it in the chat.
Salesperson. She's unbelievable, right? So
yeah.
DJ as well is like one of the more focused people I've met in my life. So yeah, I'm really curious too, DJ, Nat, Caitlin. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, go ahead and type it in.
Chat it.
Chat it to us, because you know as many tools, and then you have to apply these tools to yourself too. The last thing we talked about was watching game tape, and it's funny because when we were talking about, you and I are old enough to know game tape, but they're like, tape? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Duct tape?
Like, what are you talking about? Like masking tape, duct tape? I use duct tape to fix everything. What are you talking about? So game tape, film, game video.
I'm still going to use game tape, okay? Because I used to watch VHS, like, of my fencing. And we used to have that big thing, you know?
Yeah.
And we would videotape ourselves fencing.
Yeah. When you used to tape athletes at IMG back in the day, it was a giant video. It was like literally a tape, like a tape. Put it in the thing. And then it would get so humid that the tape would just like melt, and it couldn't roll because it was too humid.
Oh my God.
It was so funny. It was amazing.
Oh my God. We are so dating ourselves.
So
but
we're talking about with game tape is doing like a review of the week and thinking back to the week and going, okay, these were the days where I was really focused and I was productive. What was my bar, my behaviors, my attitude, and what was the R? My reactions. Routines, right? Behaviors, actions, and routines. We just learned that today. Our bar, behaviors, actions, routines. And then, what could kind of like what worked and what will we do better next week going in? So what is my game tape review for a week? That's what we were talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when I am working with clients on trying to limit distractions and optimizing themselves and optimizing their week, I'm asking them to not only look at their week ahead. So on Monday or Sunday, I have them reserve about 20 minutes to look at like, okay, what are your behaviors, actions, and what are your routines that you're going to have throughout the week so that you can get the things that you want done, and what's your focus, right? So we're talking about focus and awareness, and then staying in that focus and flow. And then on the Friday, I have them take a little bit of time, like 10 minutes, like you were saying, is to look back at the week and say what things went well. We talked about this today as an after action review report or review?
Review report, yeah. Actually, AAR, after action.
Yeah. So what were the 3 things that were on there?
What are you going to do? What did you do well? What are you going to do better? And anything you learned?
Right. So you do that same thing. So you're reviewing the week and you're looking at your energy management specifically. And there's a book actually about managing your energy and not your time. And oftentimes he uses the bar as, how do you feel at the end of the day? Like, how are you feeling? Are you feeling drained? Are you feeling like you're getting everything you need done? Do you feel like completely exhausted? So he has you do that. And I have my clients do that too, is at the end of the week, what things are going well to help support you? Because so many of my clients, and I don't know if this is how people feel, but get to the end of the week, feel like totally run down and feel like the to-do list continues to go. And they just feel like they're always treading water. And that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to increase your focus, increase your awareness to help you be more productive and supportive towards your best self.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's the whole key too, is that we're all a work in progress, right? And so we're going to have weeks that are phenomenal with this stuff. We're going to have days that are really good where I'm locked in. We're going to have days that are really crappy, right? And we're just going to be all over the place and we don't get a lot done, and our energy is off and stuff like that. And it's all about learning from the success and then realizing that, and then, okay, learning from the times where it didn't go well. So it's just kind of that constant growth. But you can't do that unless you go to the game film, game tape, game video.
Oh shoot, we got to figure it out. Is it game film, game video?
Game tape. I like game tape. We're going to stay with game tape.
I have to use game tape. Yeah,
we do. So but it's going back to that, right? And understanding, like, you don't get better without thinking about what you've been through, right? You can't execute in the future with the same behaviors you had in the past, but you can lock in what you learn, and then you execute in the present, and then your future gets better. So Caitlin says, I get my creative streak at night, so I prioritize that time after the kids go to bed, and I have time to go back to work. I also find getting a lot of resistance to complete the quote unquote thing. I try not to judge that. I step away and come back to it. Try to change my physiology, step outside. Yep. Even for a few minutes, and then get back to it. I do the step outside thing too. Like, my neighbors are like, Josh must be like thinking about a lot of stuff today because he's checked his mail 5 times. Right. So those types of things. Right. But yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Before we end, I wanted to go back to Caitlin's first other question of, do you use, when you've worked with athletes and even for yourself, do you have like a snapback word? I know some athletes use, like, there were rubber bands that you were snapping yourself back into focus or whatever. I felt like that was kind of harsh, but what are some things?
I have a Major League Baseball player I'm working with right now, and he looks at his name on his bat and he just reminds himself of who he is, right, as a person, as a human being, all that stuff. And so reads his last name on his bat, boom, gets back in. I've had definitely people, let's go, right now. Sometimes process-oriented thought processes, see the ball, right, move your feet. Tennis was always tennis is ground-up sport. So move your feet, get your feet going. Like, little things like that can be really, really, really helpful, where you get those one or two words, but they're process oriented for an outcome.
Yeah. Well, it's time, Josh.
It's noon. Okay. We are, it's 1:00 noon, Kansas City time, 1:00 Eastern time. It's been awesome. Let's wrap it up to 3 things. How awareness can impact focus. Number 1 is if you can recognize and know when you're distracted, then you can get yourself back a little bit quicker. Number 2 is you got to know yourself, so you can kind of preempt things. If you know, hey, these are the times of day I get exhausted, these are the times of day that I'm not as focused, etc. You can plan around that. And then number 3, review, look at your game tape, look at your game film, get yourself back in order.
Game tape. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you next Tuesday. Until then, review. You can go on LinkedIn. You can see all the past ones, etc. You can go in the app, the Club Limitless app. They're all listed there's a lot of them that are saved in the app, in the archives. So feel free to dive in there. Limitlessminds.com. Feel free to join our new website. We just reposted it. We just revamped it. It's amazing. Go in there, look at it. Great stuff on that. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.